My name is Christa. I'm from Canada. I work for a childcare software app in Canada. I also help out with some events around North America, and I've even helped out with this event today and yesterday. I am an organizer with A11YTO, an accessibility organization in Toronto, Canada. Today we're talking about low vision usability beyond compliance. So the things kind of fall outside the gaps, or fall inside those gaps of we have compliance for certain things. And now I'm hearing myself. Sorry. So we have compliance for certain things. These are the things that kind of fall in the cracks of compliance. So things that personally I find are issues as a low vision person. I'm not a compliance specialist, so I don't know all the ins and outs of compliance. I have a general idea, but I'm not a specialist. I'm not a developer. That goes over my head. I don't know. These are my experiences, opinions. This isn't meant to be a rant or a criticism. It's just, I want to point these things out so that hopefully we can have change for the future. So today we will be talking about low vision users, technology that's commonly used, the fails, and my final thoughts. So for low vision users, only about 10% of people who identify as blind, visually impaired, low vision, have no sight. So the remainder of us have some degree of vision, which means we can see something, but not everything that somebody with perfect or near perfect vision would be able to see. Vision can be situational. So we talk a lot about situational disabilities, where anybody could have a disability at any point in time. With vision, it's very easy. I'm sure everybody in this room has had some degree of vision disturbance in their lifetime. And if you haven't, you're very lucky, and you probably will at some point. Could be you have a headache. It could be that you're tired. It could be that you were at an event that somebody was taking your picture and the flash was in your eyes. Could be anything. The main cause of low vision is aging. So chances are most people will eventually have some versions of low vision that is permanent and will continue for the remainder of their life. So some of the technologies that a person like myself would use. Now, obviously, this isn't an exhaustive list. There are tons and tons of programs and all kinds of things out there. But these are the ones I'm aware of. So for desktop, there's Windows Magnifier. I use it all the time. It's awesome that it's available just with Windows. Zoom Text and Fusion. I used to use Zoom Text quite a bit, not so much anymore. Zoom Mac OS and Supernova, which is a great product as well. For phones and mobile devices, there's Magnifier iOS and Magnifier Android. Or Magnify, I should say, sorry. Some people, like myself, will use the largest settings. So when I'm on my phone or my tablet or what have you, I set things to the biggest text size, to the biggest font size, icon size. Everything is set to big, huge. The bigger the better for me. And then there's like display scaling on desktop, and so I often will increase the font size on my desktop. I'll use a different resolution than the standard so that things are larger. Browser zoom is quite often something that I use where you can just kind of go into the settings there, or there's some shortcut keys. When I use a higher resolution, that equals smaller content. So, I don't always do that. Not everyone is running 4K, 8K, etc. So it's one of those things to keep in mind. Not everybody's using what the standard is. We all use something different, especially when it comes to low vision. And not everyone is using a big iPhone. iPhones are great for accessibility. I don't use an iPhone personally, and they're not perfect, but they are known as the standard of great. But not everybody uses it. So sometimes we think, oh yeah, that's fine on an iPhone, that's fine on this specific device, that's fine on this specific resolution. It doesn't always work because that's not what's useful for that individual. So some of the top fails. On the screen here, we have some emojis, and this is one of the issues that I have. I see emojis and I think, okay, smiley face, smiley face, smiley face, but there's something else happening here. This one's winking at you, and whether or not you noticed, that could show issues of vision. For me, I don't see a difference even this close to this screen. So to me, that all means the same thing. So if you're using emojis, it's quite possible that your user isn't actually getting the message you're trying to convey. Because I might think, oh, you're just smiling at me, which in a message can mean a totally different thing than, oh, you're winking at me. So it's always good to use words or some other kind of description if possible. For instance, this is a text from an airline in Canada that was just trying to do a fun little poll of what do you like better? And I have to tell you, when looking for things, this was one of those difficult ones to see even when I knew what I was looking for. So, let's settle the debate. And I could see that there was 2 images. And I'm like, I can see that they're slightly different colors. What is it? Well, apparently it's skiing or snowboarding when hitting slopes in winter. So they wanted to know whether people preferred skiing or snowboarding. I couldn't participate in this because I didn't know what they were asking. So that kind of limits the access for somebody who has low vision. And they probably didn't think of it. They think, oh, emojis are cool and hip, whatever. But all they had to do was put a couple of words after it, and it would have been fine. So now you can see if we zoom in that, yeah, it skis and yeah, it's a snowboard, but there's not a whole lot of difference. Proximity is an issue. So when you're talking about forms, the name of the field should be close to the field. There should be that proximity, because if I'm zoomed in on something, or a low vision person is only getting a small snapshot of that screen, they won't know what field they're at. And so it can cause major issues, I'm sure you can understand. So for instance, a bank statement. You're looking at this statement and you say, okay, this looks all pretty and this is nice, and as a full screen is fine. But for somebody like me who zooms in and I see, okay, joint checking, but I have several. So if I go back, I have several accounts here listed, and this is made up information. But I have several accounts here listed. And so if I want to zoom in and see my joint checking, and then I have to scroll across with my mouse, if I'm not super careful, I don't know which line I'm on anymore. So that's not very useful. Yeah, it looks nice, but if the name of the line is not next to what's happening, it's hard to see. So they put these little lines in, but there's not a huge amount of contrast. That's hard to follow. Sometimes they'll do something like this, which makes it a heck of a lot easier because I can follow that space, that color difference. And so when I zoom in, then I can say, okay, I'm going to follow this lavendery kind of color instead of just this faint line that I may lose track of. Bad layout. So layout can be an issue as well. And oftentimes when, especially on mobile devices, I find that if I have everything magnified, my text enlarged, oftentimes things overlap or things are cut off. I can't access a button. And here are some examples. So, entering in your credit card information. When they ask for the secure code, the 3-digit code on the back of your credit card, well, what if I made a mistake? I don't know what I entered. It's only showing me part of one digit. And everything is kind of askew and, When I order groceries, I use an app and it will allow me to tip my driver. When somebody who doesn't have the accessibility features turned on, when they look at it, it looks like this with several options and a save button at the bottom. When I use it on my phone, this is what I see. I don't even have access to see what the numbers are at the bottom, much less actually apply it to the order. When searching for maps, this is my local airport that I was trying to search, and as you can see, it comes up with a bunch of different options. But I don't know which one's which, because they all say the same thing, because they're all cut off. In this case, we have text that's overlapping other text, which makes it hard to be able to read and navigate through, because I'm already trying to navigate with smaller text. And mouse movements. So when I use a screen magnifier, I move my mouse across the page, which indicates my focus. That doesn't indicate where I actually want. It's my focus, what I'm looking at. It's not focus on what I'm trying to select. So when you have something like a pop-up or a hover over, if you leave your mouse on a certain area, that doesn't work well when you're trying to read something and you need to move your mouse across the page. So for instance, on Teams, you go over, and I was trying to read something on our Teams page, and if I accidentally happen to move my mouse over this list pop-up, this is what happens. So if I'm trying to read the screen and I have this list button that pops up, that completely blocks my view. And sometimes it's hard to move my mouse out of the way because it's in my way. So that can be a real challenge as well. Disabling accessibility features. I've run across this a few times where you go to a public access computer or a device, a kiosk, and they have purposely turned off the disability or the accessibility features. So they won't let me zoom in. They won't let me increase the font size. They won't let me look at things in a way that I need to be able to use them. And that's very difficult because it's built into devices these days. And to have somebody disable it, it's kind of like an act of going against what people need. Ignoring dark mode can be an issue, especially in apps and these kinds of things, where if you are using an app or web page and you need things in higher contrast, and the device or the app decides, oh no, we don't support dark mode. That's really difficult because that higher contrast means that somebody like myself is going to be able to read it versus not read it. Timers. So I'm sure everybody's seen, a timer pop up on a screen when completing a form or something like that. So I was buying tickets to a hockey game, like a good Canadian girl, and looked at the form, and I'm like, okay, I need to zoom in. And so I started entering in all my information. And then suddenly, well, I didn't notice, but this is popping up in the top right-hand corner. So if we go back, you can see that there's this faint green indicator in the top right-hand corner saying that there's a countdown. I didn't know, and I was zoomed in like this, so I definitely couldn't see it. But whoops, timer, 3 seconds. And just as I'm about to submit, it says, sorry, time's up. The time limit gives all fans a fair shot at tickets. Well, it really didn't, because I was zoomed in. I wasn't looking at that top right-hand corner because I was filling out a form. In some cases, people will have something that'll pop up on your screen, and it'll say, your time is about to expire, do you need more time? That's a more useful tool. But timers I find difficult in the beginning. Consistency. So I'm not sure if anybody else is aware of this or has noticed this, but I definitely do. When I go to somewhere like Netflix, I don't go and look at what the actual title of the show is. I don't look at the picture. I look at what it looks like in my mind. So a variety of colors and shapes and images. And then I go and I memorize that. So if I want to watch Friends, I know that it's this image. But then if I go back to Netflix 2 days later and they've changed that image, that's really difficult. Then I need to actually use other devices or get this close to my TV screen to be able to watch Friends the next time. Also, in some cases, we have issues like this with certain buttons. So if you notice, this button, or this icon and this icon, basically look the same. But when I use my accessibility features on my phone, I don't get to read what it says. I couldn't read it necessarily anyway. But those buttons are the same. So oftentimes, I'm like, okay, is it the first one? Is it the second one? I don't know. Things like this, where there's just a slight difference, those can be difficult too. Also, sometimes during certain events, holidays, different seasons, different companies will change the logo. And so then I'm like, okay, what am I actually looking for? And final thoughts. So, some of the things that I'd like to have you keep in mind when you are sending out messages to people, if you're dealing with social media for your company, if you are part of a company that is developing images, or even in everyday life, just remember, emojis, they can be difficult. They are ever changing. We don't know what they look like. I don't. It can be difficult for even the aging population. So people don't know what these things mean all the time. So put a little bit of context with it. Proximity, try and make sure that your content is close enough together that you know what you're looking at and what you're getting. Cut off and overlapping content, obviously, just a bad idea. If my mouse is moving across a page, it doesn't necessarily mean I want to select on that one thing. So when you're dealing with pop-ups, just keep that in mind as well. Timers, make sure that people are aware that they are at least there. If you're going to use them, make sure people are aware. Pop something up on the screen saying, hey, you have 1 minute left. Would you like some more time? And consistency. Try and keep images and graphics the same if you can. It just makes things a lot easier. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Jeremy.
In the case of a Ticketmaster timer, do they give you an option to add more time?
So Jeremy's asking, in the case of the Ticketmaster timer, did they give me an option to add more time? No.
That's a problem too.
It is. Any other questions? And if I don't see you, shut it out. Awesome. Thank you so much.